are there issues of times of the day that are more intense than others? And I think this is an area I think we're particularly focused on because we want to make sure people have the ability to get to work.
You're welcome to be stalling, and I'm not going to stall. You either answer the question yes or no.
Congressman, I'll take the same privileges that you've had to other members.
Tell you that nobody at the White House was supposed to even contact the Attorney General about the investigation. That you can answer yes or no.
I will not disclose any conversations I've had with the President, Congresswoman.
Again, you are obviously here to block any reasonable inquiry into the truth or not of this administration. The White House counsel, quote, shortly after Sessions announced his recusal, directed that Sessions should not be contacted about the special counsel's investigation. In fact, the White House counsel's internal notes state no contact with Sessions and no communication serious about instruction. Can you read that? I just said it. Can you read that? Did you hear me?
Yes, is there a question?
Yes. Did the President tell you his White House counsel told him no contact with Sessions because of serious concerns of obstruction when he asked you to deliver a message to Sessions?
I am respecting the executive branch privilege of confidentiality, and I will recognize that this time.
Let me just say that you knew, did you know the President was putting you at risk when he asked you to deliver a message to the Attorney General? I want to be very clear. The President knew what he was doing was wrong because everyone else had already said no. He called his White House counsel to fire the special counsel. McGahn said no. He called the Attorney General to ask him to unrecuse himself from the special counsel's investigation. Sessions said no. His White House counsel said there should be no contact with Sessions because of his recusal. So what does the President do? He calls you in to do what everyone else wouldn't do. He called you in to do his dirty work in secret because he knew it was wrong. Well, we will expose the truth. The President cannot hide behind you any longer.
Our experience with COVID, with our number of positive cases, I may be able to announce it early, but if it's more in a gray area, I would likely wait. But again,
I don't believe there was a question,
anticipate
Yes, there was.
in either case.
Could you repeat the question? I didn't hear it.
I'd be happy to repeat
going
the
just a
on,
rant.
everything going back to normal. At that point, we would likely be only recommending, if we were able, some small portion of
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Lewandowski, thank you for appearing this afternoon.
So with
to
that,
testify
we
before
are
this committee.
now at the
I
end of
understand
our
that you've
appointed
spent many
time. I want to
hours
thank
testifying
Secretary
voluntarily,
Chertoff and
before Congress
Ambassador
over the
Rice,
last
all of
few
the
years.
co-chairs
Isn't
who
that correct?
participated, and all of you,
And have you
over
had to hire and
3,000
retain
people
counsel
listening on the
to
line,
represent you
watching
for all the
on
investigations
our cable
that you've
channels
had to
and
endure
following on Twitter.
simply because
if
you
you still have
served
questions,
as the President's
please,
campaign manager?
Give
Yes,
us
sir.
a tweet
That's unfortunate
with
because
#VC Hope,
you didn't
and
solicit
our team
or receive
will be getting
assistance
back to
from
you.
the
And
Russians,
also,
did you?
please
No, sir.
complete the survey.
Are you an agent
I think when
working
I
on
walked
behalf
in the
of the
room,
Russian
we were
government?
at almost
No, sir.
4,000 responses to the
As a
survey.
close friend and
that
advisor
is
of the
another
President,
great way to let
you
us
don't
know what
believe
you're
that the
thinking.
President
Those
is
results will
working
be
on
shared
behalf
with
of the
committee
Russian?
and
Do you?
all DC
Absolutely
leaders
not.
who are helping us through this pandemic.
And to your knowledge,
I
there is
also,
no
I
effort
know
on the
that
part of the
Chairman
President
Mendelson, is
to
on the
intentionally
call
obstruct justice,
and
is there?
No,
on
sir.
our steering committee.
Thank
and
you.
I want to thank
And
all the
yet
members
again,
of the council who have
coming
been
here to tell this
so
committee
helpful
what we,
in,
Special
all of their
Counsel
areas of
Mueller
oversight
and the American
leadership
public
in their
already
wards,
know that
and
President
in
Trump
passing
did not
two very
collude with the
consequential
Russians,
pieces of
nor did he
legislation,
obstruct justice.
that are helping us respond.
That's not to say that the Russians
Thank you, everybody.
weren't trying to interfere and influence our 2016 presidential elections. It's clear that they were, by sending fake texts, operating fake Facebook pages, holding fake rallies, all in an effort to try to influence the outcome of the election. Democrats want to ignore all of the real evidence of Russian interference and hold this fake impeachment because it happened under a different president's watch.
Mayor
This all
Bowser
happened
wants
under
D.C.
President
small
Obama's
businesses
watch,
to
isn't that
know
correct?
that the
Yes, sir.
Federal Small Business
And
Administration
it was
has
the Obama
accepted
administration
D.C.'s
that
declaration
failed
for
to
economic
protect
injury relief
us
related to the
from the Russian
coronavirus.
interference
While we
and
continue
influence
responding
in our
and mitigating the
election.
spread of the
Isn't that also true?
coronavirus,
Yes.
Mayor Bowser is
President
launching
Trump
our
wasn't
economic
president.
recovery
He
effort.
wasn't the
One
one
step in
that
our
failed to
economic
protect
recovery
the country.
effort
If
is
anybody
relief
failed,
options
it was the Obama
for small
administration.
businesses
Is that right?
offered by
Yes,
the
it is.
federal SBA. will provide targeted, low-interest loans to local businesses that have been severely impacted by the coronavirus.
This federal program provides working capital loans of up to $2 million to help businesses overcome the temporary loss of revenue. We encourage businesses to directly submit their federal SBA application at disasterloan.sba.gov.
For more information about the district's coronavirus response and recovery efforts, visit coronavirus.dc.gov. As Mayor Bowser says, we're all in this together, and we'll all get through this together.
This jurisdiction over a whole lot of very significant things. We're spending our time on this fake impeachment, but we could be focused on something that really matters, like immigration, asylum. We have hundreds of thousands of people that have entered our southern border. Generally, they're brought up either individually or in groups, caravans, usually oftentimes connected with cartels. Cartels make a lot of money when they come up here. They're told the magic words, come across the border, they say that they're in fear, and come right into our country, and we put them on a bus or on a plane, and they're sent to communities all across the country. That's something this committee should be working in a bipartisan manner to do something about. Opioids, we have about 7,000 Americans who lost their lives to opioids last year. That's something in the jurisdiction of this committee. Yep, we do virtually nothing about it in this committee. Balanced budget deficit, it's something I introduced in this Congress. We got a $22 trillion debt hanging over our head. Yet we do nothing in this committee about attempting to actually pass something that would make us balance the budget every year, like all our states have to do. So finally, I just want to thank you again, Mr. Lewandowski, for appearing at today's hearing. Perhaps your testimony today will finally convince Democrats that there are much more important things that this committee could be spending our time on, rather than continuing to pursue this fake impeachment, a faux impeachment. The bottom line is they don't have the votes in the House to move forward, for the House to vote for this committee to open up an impeachment inquiry. They don't have the votes. Some of the Democrats want to vote for it. Some of the Democrats would vote against it, but they don't have the votes. So what they do is they spend valuable committee time that we could be spending on other important things on this fake, faux impeachment. And it's a shame, because this committee could be doing so much more on behalf of the American people.
Hello, my name is Dr. Unique Morris Hughes, and I'm the Director of the Department of Employment Services. And today I'll be sharing instructions on how to file an unemployment insurance claim with the District of Columbia. District employees may file for unemployment compensation at dcnetworks.org, and we suggest using Internet Explorer. To begin the process of filing your unemployment benefits, you will need to do the following. First, log on to www.dcnetworks.org and click the tab labeled Claim Unemployment Benefits. Next, on the Unemployment Insurance Service Center for Claimants page, locate and click the section marked File for Benefits. Then, scroll to the bottom of the page and click the section marked File Your Claim Online. And finally, proceed to answering the questions with accurate information in order to complete the claim filing. Claimants are encouraged to file online at www.dcnetworks.org to avoid long wait times by phone. If you're having trouble filing your claim online, call 202-724-7000 to connect to our Customer Navigation Center. As Mayor Bowser says, we're all in this together, and we'll all get through this together.
The gentleman stated the parliamentary inquiry.
He did not. That was a statement.
I answered his parliamentary inquiry. The gentleman from Tennessee is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Lewandowski, it's been made clear here you were not an employee and you admitted of the White House.
Mayor Bowser wants D.C. small businesses to know that the Federal Small Business Administration has accepted D.C.'s declaration for economic injury relief related to the coronavirus.
While we continue responding and mitigating the spread of the coronavirus, Mayor Bowser is launching our economic recovery effort. One step in our economic recovery effort is relief options for small businesses offered by the federal SBA, which will provide targeted, low-interest loans to local businesses that have been severely impacted by the coronavirus.
This federal program provides working capital loans of up to $2 million to help businesses overcome the temporary loss of revenue. We encourage businesses to directly submit their federal SBA application at disasterloan.sba.gov.
For more information about the district's coronavirus response and recovery efforts, visit coronavirus.dc.gov. As Mayor Bowser says, we're all in this together, and we'll all get through this together.
A message to give Sessions. Had you ever been a secretary for the president before and taken dictation or shorthand?
Many times.
To work, we got your qualifications now. You were a secretary.
On the bus and in cars. All moving together,
but he asked you outside of White House channels, and that's what Mueller wrote, that this was outside of White House channels. Could it have been he asked you to get the message to Sessions because he thought you would do whatever he asked, even if it was illegal or immoral, just like your former boss Bob Ney, who said you were an implementer. News reports called you the president's, quote, enforcer. USA Today said Lewandowski's background is largely as a Trump guy, and not so much as a strategist, not a campaign manager, but as a right-hand man, a body man, and an enforcer. And Esquire went further and said the one-time campaign manager for Donald Trump has the traits of an enforcer and the conflict resolution skills to match. And you have you've even described yourself in your book. Let Trump be Trump. You said we were fine with whatever role the president wanted us to play. In Donald Trump's army, there were only loyal soldiers. There were no more loyal soldiers. Your previous boss, Bob Ney, was convicted of corruption and lying to authorities in the Jack Abraham scandal. You were fired from Americans for Prosperity after being accused of fraud, voter fraud. You are now involved in this. Either you were willing to break the law for politics and Mr. Trump, or you're some kind of a Forrest Gump relating to corruption. So maybe let me ask you this. Did the president pick you as enforcer? He thought you would play whatever role he wanted because it was illegal? Is that possibly why he chose you to take this message to Sessions?
That'd be a question for the president, Congressman.
Well, Donald Trump was right, though. First, the White House counsel, Don McGahn, refused to fire the special counsel. Mr. McGahn showed principle and character and refused to do what he knew would be an illegal act. Then Attorney General Sessions, who recused himself, was asked to unrecuse himself. But Attorney General Sessions also did the right thing. And he said, I'm not going to unrecuse myself because I have a conflict, because I did was involved in the campaign and do some things, can't do it. Then the White House
Hi, this is Michelle Obama. On behalf of Mayor Bowser, I wanted to share information on free coronavirus testing for District of Columbia residents experiencing symptoms. If you or a member of your household is experiencing fever, cough, sore throat, difficulty breathing, congestion, body aches, chills, runny nose, please contact your medical provider immediately. You can schedule a free testing appointment by contacting your medical provider or calling the DC hotline at 1-855-363-0333 in English or 1-844-796-2797 in English and Spanish. Remember, we urge you to stay home except if you need essential health care, essential food or supplies, or to go to your essential job. Thank you, and please stay home, D.C. For more information, please visit coronavirus.dc.gov.
Congressman Ney, Congressman, so we're clear, went to jail many years after I left his employment.
Hi, this is Michelle
Obama.
Clarify
that for the record.
On behalf of Mayor Bowser, I wanted to share information on free coronavirus testing for District of Columbia residents experiencing symptoms. If you or a member of your household is experiencing fever, cough, sore throat, difficulty breathing, congestion, body aches, chills, runny nose, please contact your medical provider immediately. You can schedule a free testing appointment by contacting your medical provider or calling the DC hotline at 1-855-363-0333 in English.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Or
Mr. Lewandowski, you ran President Trump's campaign between January 2015 and June 2016. Is that right?
In English and Spanish.
You were at the helm of the
Remember,
campaign
we
when
urge
President
you to
Trump
stay home
secured the Republican
except
nomination.
if you need essential health care,
Pretty good
essential
campaign you
food
ran.
or supplies, or
I mean,
to
you beat,
go to your
what,
essential
17,
job.
18 different opponents?
Thank you.
Senators,
And
governors, some good
please
senators.
Stay home, D.C. For
of course,
more
you had a pretty good
information,
candidate.
please visit coronavirus.dc.gov.
Pretty good candidate. I think he's done a great job as president of the United States. After you left the campaign, I think you left in June of 2016. After you left the head of the campaign, were you still involved with the campaign throughout the rest of the election, all the way up through November 8th, 2016?
Yes.
In that entire time. So you were part of the campaign operation at some level or another from January 2015 to November 8th, 2016. During that entire time, did you guys ever work with Russia to impact the election?
No.
You know what's interesting, Mr. Lewandowski? When Jim Comey was asked that same question, sitting at that same table, he gave the same answer. Bob Mueller was asked that same question, sitting at that same table, he gave the same answer. Falsely accused, the president is falsely accused of colluding with a foreign state to impact the election. Jim Comey, when we deposed him at that very table, said after 10 months of investigation, we didn't have a thing. Bob Mueller gets named special counsel. He wastes $30 million of taxpayer money, 22-month investigation. He sits at that table just a few weeks ago and gives the same darn answer. But these guys over here, they don't care.
What's up,
They don't care. They don't want to get to what Mr. Chavez said. They don't want to figure out how the false accusation happened. They just want to drag people in front of this committee and keep trying to find some way they can go after the president. Let's go back to the process that the ranking member raised.
This yellow line makes some Americans less equal. This is David. He has lived in D.C. all of his life and has 2 kids.
Yes.
And
this
you
is his
went
neighbor,
before the special
Bernardo.
counsel and
He
answered
and
his
his
questions
family
in
live in
2018.
Maryland.
Is that right?
Bernardo
It
and
is.
David are
And you did
both
that all
U.S.
voluntarily?
citizens. Bernardo
Yes.
has a voice
No
in
subpoena?
Congress. David
No, sir.
does
Said,
not.
I'm willing to
Congress
comply,
can
give
even
answers,
overturn
answer all the
David's
questions you
local
got.
laws.
Yes.
End
I think in your opening
taxation
statement you
without
said 20-some.
representation.
How many hours
Join
did you set in
D.C.
front of those
Vote
various committees?
today.
More than 20.
Hi, this is
More than
Michelle
20
Obama.
hours.
On behalf of
And for
Mayor
this committee,
Bowser,
did you
I
get a
wanted to
letter
share
from this committee
information
back
on
in
free
March asking you to
coronavirus
comply with certain
testing
document
for District of
requests that
Columbia
Chairman
residents
Nadler
experiencing
wanted to have?
symptoms.
I believe so,
If
yes.
you or a
And you and your
member
legal
of your
team complied with
household
that?
is experiencing
Yes, sir.
And then on June
fever,
24th,
cough,
you got another letter,
sore
is that
throat,
right?
difficulty breathing,
June 24th of this
congestion,
year, you
body
got another letter
aches,
asking
chills,
you to
runny
do an
nose,
interview, a transcribed interview.
please contact your medical
in front of the
provider
committee.
immediately. You can
And
schedule
your
a
lawyer
free testing
contacted
appointment
Chairman
by
Nadler and said, "We'd be happy
contacting
to
your
do that." Is
medical
that right?
provider or
Yes.
calling the
Say,
DC
give us some
hotline
dates, we'll come in,
at
we'll be happy to sit for an interview.
1-855
That's right.
What happened next?
363-0333 in English,
about 5 weeks ago,
or
the committee issued a subpoena for my appearance.
1-844-796-2797
You're willing to come voluntarily, just like you did with Senate Intel,
in
House
English
Intel, just like you
and
did for Bob
Spanish.
Mueller, for the special counsel,
Remember,
20-some hours.
we
You're willing to do
urge
that
you
all.
to stay
You complied
home
with when they asked you for
except
certain
if you
documents.
need
And then when they
essential
want you to come in for an
healthcare,
interview,
essential
said, all right,
food
sure,
or
we'll do it. They
supplies,
hit you with a subpoena.
or to go to your
Correct.
And
essential
then they start
job.
calling you names,
Thank you.
saying,
And
close up that book,
please
answer the question,
stay
start treating you
home,
this
DC.
way. Kind
For
of
more
interesting.
information,
They're the ones that
please
started
visit
it. They're the ones that slapped you with a subpoena when you were willing to come here voluntarily.
coronavirus.dc.gov.
I was.
And then they question what the demeanor you bring here today. I mean, first they changed the rules last week in the middle of the Congress, changed the rules of the committee in the middle of the game, and then today they're not even going to follow the rules because the rules they changed last week talked about staff asking questions after members are done. We got this whole issue with consultants. So this, maybe we would be better served if we did exactly what Mr. Chavez said. Maybe we would be better served as the House Judiciary Committee if we actually focused on how this whole false accusation started in the first place. What do you think, Mr. Lewandowski?
I think it'd be a great idea.
Great idea. Maybe the American people would be better served than spending more time investigating something that's already had 32 months of investigation from both Jim Comey, the FBI, and Bob Mueller, the special counsel. Maybe we would do that. You know, a great place to start. Great place to start, Mr. Chairman. Ask you about this one. Go today. Great place to start would be the Inspector General's report that was issued just 3 weeks ago. The scathing report about Jim Comey. That'd be a nice place to start. But when I asked the chairman when we might have an opportunity to question Mr. Horowitz, he said, I don't know. I haven't thought about that. Of course you haven't thought about that.
This yellow line
Too
makes
busy
some
trying to impeach
Americans
the
less
president.
equal.
Too busy slapping
This is
subpoenas on
David.
Corey Lewandowski.
He has lived in D.C.
Of course you
all
haven't
of his
thought about
life
That's
and
what the
has
committee
2
should be
kids.
focused on. I yield back.
This is his neighbor, Bernardo.
Gentleman yields back.
He and
The
his
gentleman from
family live
Georgia.
in Maryland.
Thank you,
Bernardo
Mr. Chairman,
and David
Mr.
are both U.S. citizens. Bernardo has a voice in Congress. David does not. Congress can even overturn David's local laws, end taxation without representation. Join DC Vote today.
The president's past statements. Everybody knows that the president does not like for anybody to take notes when he's talking. In fact, he asked lawyers not to take official notes, and you're aware of that, correct?
Mayor Bowser wants D.C. small businesses to know that the Federal Small Business Administration has accepted D.C.'s declaration for economic injury relief related to the coronavirus.
While we continue responding and mitigating the spread of the coronavirus, Mayor Bowser is launching our economic recovery effort. One step in our economic recovery effort is relief options for small businesses offered by the federal SBA, which will provide targeted, low-interest loans to local businesses that have been severely impacted by the coronavirus.
This federal program provides working capital loans of up to $2 million to help businesses overcome the temporary loss of revenue. We encourage businesses to directly submit their federal SBA application at disasterloan.sba.gov.
For more information about the district's coronavirus response and recovery efforts, visit coronavirus.dc.gov. As Mayor Bowser says, we're all in this together, and we'll all get through this together.
I believe he asked me to deliver a message for Jeff to consider delivering himself.
And it was a message that he intended for Jeff, meaning Jeff Sessions, to deliver out loud and publicly. He wanted the public to know what he was saying, but he wanted Jeff to say it, correct?
Call 911 to get medical help.
I believe the Mueller report accurately depicts that.
Let 911 know
Mr.
where you are and what has happened.
We've projected on the screen the message that the president dictated to you that he wanted you to deliver to the Attorney General. It's on the screen, and I'd like for you to read the first two sentences if you would entertain that.
Did you know that D.C. Public Schools has
as Director Mueller stated when asked to read from the report, and I quote, I would be happy to have you read it, Congressman.
Look on the, would you prefer for me to read it instead of you?
Please.
Okay. It says, I know that I recused myself from certain things having to do with specific areas, but our POTUS is being treated very
Hello,
unfairly.
my name is Dr. Unique Morris Hughes, and I'm the Director of the Department of Employment Services. And today I'll be sharing instructions on how to file an unemployment insurance claim with the District of Columbia. District employees may file for unemployment compensation at dcnetworks.org, and we suggest using Internet Explorer. To begin the process of filing your unemployment benefits, you will need to do the following. First, log on to www.dcnetworks.org and click the tab labeled Claim Unemployment Benefits. Next, on the Unemployment Insurance Service Center for Claimants page, locate and click the section marked File for Benefits. Then, scroll to the bottom of the page and click the section marked File your claim online. And finally, proceed to answering the questions with accurate information in order to complete the claim filing. Claimants are encouraged to file online at www.dcnetworks.org to avoid long wait times by phone. If you're having trouble filing your claim online, call 202-724-7000 to connect to our Customer Navigation Center. As Mayor Bowser says, we're all in this together, and we'll all get through this together.
I don't know if that's in the reports or not.
And you told him that, yeah, I'm going to get around to it. I'm going to deliver it, correct?
To work, to
I'd have to see the reference to the Mueller report with that.
It's in the report, and everybody.
Direct me to the booking page so I can review that.
I don't need to waste any time with that, but let me tell you something. The next three sentences,
when we fill it out, we will help determine
after those first two, would you read those, please?
You're welcome to, Congressman.
Okay, he said he shouldn't have a special prosecutor or counsel because he hasn't done anything wrong. I was on the campaign with him for 9 months. There were no Russian discussions involved with him. I know it for a fact because I was there. Now, the president wanted Attorney General to say that, but you didn't deliver the message, and you knew that Attorney General Sessions had recused himself at that time, and since he had recused himself, you knew that it would have been against the law for him to comment in any way on that investigation. Isn't that right?
I did not know that.
You did not know that. You did not know that.
Correct.
Time of the gentleman has expired. The gentleman from Colorado.
Thank you for putting up with the harassment that you're putting up with right now. According to the Alliance for Securing Democracy, Russia interfered in the elections of Belarus, Bulgaria, Canada, Cyprus, the Czech Republic, Denmark, Estonia, Finland, France, Georgia, Germany, Hungary, Italy, Latvia, Lithuania, Macedonia, Moldova, Montenegro, Norway, Poland, Portugal, Spain, Sweden, Turkey, United Kingdom, Ukraine, and the United States. They specifically targeted the Scottish independence vote, the Brexit vote, and Angela Merkel. Despite knowledge of these kinds of election threats, the Obama administration sat idly by. Instead of warning the Trump campaign, Loretta Lynch's DOJ and James Comey's FBI used secret surveillance to spy on members of the Trump campaign, all while allowing election interference to occur. Why isn't this hearing focused on holding DOJ and FBI leadership accountable for this kind of terrible malfeasance and lack of judgment? What was Putin's ultimate goal? Clint Watts, a former FBI agent and counterterrorism specialist, said it is to attack and undermine democracy. He said the goal is to leave voters feeling as if, quote, either the institutions are corrupt or you can't trust the vote, end of quote. This is the kind of classic disinformation campaign that the KGB runs. And as we all know, Vladimir Putin was a former leader of the KGB. In 2016, Putin's goal could have been very simple. Divide the American electorate, sow seeds of distrust, make it impossible for whoever won our election to govern. With America weakened at home, we would be weakened on the international stage. Putin wins with a weakened America, regardless of who won the election. This is the kind of approach that has been used by the communists in Russia for nearly a century. After overthrowing Russian Tsar Nicholas II in 1917, Vladimir Lenin, different Vladimir, and the communists utilized Western journalists as propaganda tools to defend communism. New York Times journalist John Reed, for example, defended the Bolsheviks advocating against American intervention. Lenin used even the term useful idiots to describe how leftist-leaning, communist sympathizing Americans could be easily tricked and used to help the Russians. For the past 3 years, Democrats have focused on undermining America's president instead of working with President Trump and Republicans in Congress to harden our election defenses. I think there would be broad bipartisan support that we need to prevent future election meddling. The Mueller report makes clear that President Trump wanted to focus on protecting our democracy from future attacks. So I have one question, Mr. Lewandowski. It's clear that Putin attacked America with the goal of dividing the American people, and today's hearing is being held for the sole purpose of attacking America's president, which will weaken our country on the international stage. Do you believe that Vladimir Putin is sitting in his office right now in the Kremlin, laughing at what those on the other side of the aisle are doing, and believing that those on the other side of the aisle are useful idiots helping?
And what we know is that these two hospitals are going to transform our health care system by promoting equity and care, access, and outcomes.
And the rules of this committee and the
One
House
of
rules,
the frustrating realities that we face, without a doubt, is that we have some of the best hospitals
and I
and
believe
most
the gentleman said those on the other side of the
medical
aisle
professionals
are idiots.
anywhere in the world.
This is a
right
very
here in
sacred and
Washington,
somber
D.C.
responsibility.
We also have
I've taken
one
an
of
oath
the
of
lowest
office, my good friend,
uninsured
just like you
rates in
did.
the nation.
I am concerned about the
theory,
Constitution
everyone,
just as you are,
regardless of zip
and I would
code,
not
income, or
engage
race,
in any behavior that could be described as idiot. Never in my life or my colleagues have we ever discussed behaving like idiots. Mr. Chairman, that is an inappropriate terminology and description of the members of this House or Republicans or Democrats, no matter what position they are.
Mr. Chairman, I will overrule the point of order. The rules of decorum refer to motive. Calling someone an idiot is not flattering, but it does not go to motive.
Our hospitals aren't
and I believe we should have the most robust debate. I believe we should respect each other. But I don't think we should.
In the northwest part of Washington.
I don't think that goes to motive, and accordingly, I'm going to overrule the point of order.
Inequities in our systems, not just here in D.C.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, I didn't call anybody an idiot. I said useful idiot. And secondly, I asked the witness whether he believed that as part of Vladimir Putin's strategy, Vladimir Putin was being aided by useful idiots in America. Your answer, sir.
And here's another urgency for all of us.
Congressman, I can't be sure to the motives of Vladimir Putin or the Russians who want to interfere with our election process in 2016, but I can be certain of one thing. Donald Trump was a private citizen at the time, and he had no more responsibility or authority to secure the integrity of the 2016 election cycle than I did. That responsibility fell to the intelligence community and the Obama-Biden administration. They clearly failed. Never did they contact under my tenure me to inform me or anyone at the campaign at the time of any potential hacking which may have been transpiring. Never did they contact us to alert us of any potential security violations as it related to the election. And so I think Mr. Comey, Mr. Brennan, and Mr. Clapper ultimately own the responsibilities ahead of the intelligence community to understand why they did not do a better job of protecting the American electorate in 2016 to ensure we didn't have foreign interference.
And Mr. Lewandowski, had they contacted you, what would have been your response in terms of notifying others on the election in terms of their dealing with Russians?
We would have worked with them. I would have recommended working through counsel to work with them to notify them of any potential contacts, which I don't ever recall having, but if we would have had any, I would have made sure we notified the appropriate authorities immediately.
Thank you. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Florida.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Lewandowski, I just want to follow up on Mr. Johnson. The Mueller report, volume 2, page 90, says 1 month later, this is a month after your June 19th meeting, presumably after you returned from vacation, the president met again with Lewandowski, followed up on the request to have Sessions limit the scope of the Russia investigation. Just to clarify that he did do that. But I want to go back to that meeting on June 19th. The president asked you to write down word for word a script that he wanted the Attorney General of the United States to deliver. Isn't that correct?
Advisory group with
I'm sorry, can you just give me the reference again, Congressman?
We can implement
let me do this. Previously, you testified, because it's reported in the Mueller report, that the president asked Lewandowski to deliver a message to Sessions and write this down. This is page 91. This was the first time the president asked him to take dictation. You wrote as fast as possible. The notes that you took at that meeting are on the screen. If you could, I don't know that the notes are. I'm going to read the section of the notes that you took. That were, again, this is what you were asked to deliver to the Attorney General of the United States to announce in public. I know I recused myself from certain things having to do with specific areas, but our POTUS is being treated very unfairly. He shouldn't have a special prosecutor counsel because he hasn't done anything wrong. I was on the campaign with him for 9 months. There were no Russians involved with him. I know for a fact because I was there. He didn't do anything wrong except run the greatest campaign in American history. That's from page 91. That's what President Trump wanted the Attorney General to say in public about the special counsel's investigation. Is that right?
I believe that's an accurate representation.
So this is in June of 2017. You said that you didn't know about the Attorney General being barred from participating, speaking out about the Russia investigation. The public didn't know about all these attempts to influence the investigation at that time. But what we did know, what everyone knew, Mr. Lewandowski, was that the president's campaign was under investigation, and they knew the Attorney General couldn't touch it because he was a major part of the campaign. He advised on national security matters, and back in March, he had recused himself. He had recused himself from anything having to do with the investigation. You weren't aware of that at all? That what he did in March and the fact that he had recused himself?
I was aware of the Attorney General's recusal.
And so when the president asked you to deliver a speech that he wanted the Attorney General, who could not participate in the investigation, couldn't talk about anything having to do with the investigation. He recused himself. When the president asked you to deliver that word-for-word speech for him, that there was no inconsistency with that and the fact that the Attorney General had recused himself. You knew that he had, and you knew that he couldn't participate in any way.
I'm not an attorney, Congressman.
I'm not asking you as an attorney. I am, but that's not how I'm asking. I'm just asking you if you knew that he had recused himself. You did, right?
I'm aware of the public reports that Jeff Sessions recused himself from the investigation.
By recusing himself, you're aware of the public reports that, and what was in his recusal statement on March 2nd of 2017, that he wasn't going to participate in any existing or future investigations of any matters relating to the campaign for president. You knew that was out there. So when the president asked you to specifically go in there and ask him to deliver a speech, which was contrary to that, forget about being a lawyer. Did it strike you as off in any way? Were you concerned in any way?
Will be parking and transportation
No, sir.
services.
Was it the right decision for Sessions to recuse himself?
Metro.
Well, I can't comment on Jeff Sessions' decision-making process.
So here's
I
what he
also want to
did.
talk about the network
The script says a group of people want to subvert the Constitution. I'm going to meet with the special prosecutor to explain this is very unfair and let the special prosecutor move forward with investigating election mailing for future elections so that nothing can happen in future elections. The president, you'll agree, was trying to force the investigation to focus only on the future so it didn't focus on him. Isn't that right, Mr. Lewandowski?
I don't agree to that.
That's not when you look only in the future and you're not allowed to look at the one investigation into the president. That's not how you interpret that. You interpret it differently.
I think that could be your interpretation.
It is. I think it's an obvious interpretation. If we have more time, I'd ask what yours is. But I'll just close with this. A month. He asked you to do this. He brought you in to talk to the Attorney General because the president was terrified, Mr. Lewandowski. A month before your meeting, the special counsel was appointed, and the president said, oh my God, this is terrible. He wanted you to pressure the Attorney General, someone who wasn't even allowed to talk about the investigation, to block him from looking at his own conduct. Mr. Lewandowski, that's abuse of power, and as we go on through this investigation, I hope you'll be able to further elaborate on how you could have seen this in any other light than the obvious way the president attempted to abuse his power.
His time has expired. The witness may answer the question.
That it will take for us to be open at St. Elizabeth in the fall of 2024. We will now introduce legislation and the agreement with the Council of the District of Columbia.
Mr. Lewandowski, welcome to what my colleagues on the other side of the aisle have alternatively described and argued over the past week as an impeachment inquiry, an impeachment investigation, an impeachment probe, and an impeachment proceeding. Now, if you're confused which one, I assure you, you're not alone. A lot of the folks that are watching today might be confused because they might be thinking that impeachment proceedings are supposed to be initiated after a vote by the full House of Representatives, and they'd be right. But you see, the Democrats, now the party of impeachment, tried that 3 times and failed miserably 3 times.
So, as you can
twice
see,
before the Mueller report,
we have
and
a
then
lot
once
of work to
again after the Mueller report. So last week, the party of impeachment,
but we have been
which is in charge of this committee, changed our rules so that they could get to impeachment in a different way. And Mr. Lewandowski, you're lucky. You're the first witness for the party of impeachment's new impeachment procedure.
I feel very lucky. Thank you.
You should. Now, I know that you've testified before the House, before the Senate, and before the special counsel. But in fairness, Mr. Lewandowski, that's when my colleagues on the other side of the aisle were promising the American people that there was going to be impeachment by collusion or impeachment by conspiracy, which of course didn't exist, and the special counsel said it didn't exist. So then they had to shift and say, well, now it's going to be impeachment by obstruction of justice. Remember that they promised that special counsel Mueller was going to breathe life into impeachment by obstruction of justice, but instead he put it to death. I don't know if you remember, but I asked him, can you give me an example other than Donald Trump where the Justice Department determined that an investigated person was not exonerated because their innocence was not conclusively determined? And his answer was, I cannot. Do you remember that? So, as it turns out, all 200, nearly 200 pages of the Mueller report and the analysis in Volume 2 of obstruction of justice was done under a legal standard and legal burden of proof that is not recognized and ever been used before in American jurisprudence. But the party of impeachment, we're going to gloss over that today. We're also going to gloss over the fact that the Inspector General criminally referred the FBI director who leaked the information to get the special counsel in the first place. And the same Inspector General who found that facts establishing that same FBI director was in fact targeting Donald Trump at the same time in an investigation where he said he wasn't investigating Donald Trump. Now, you might think that this committee would be interested in hearing from that Inspector General for the first time rather than hearing from you for the fourth time. But maybe you can be helpful because the party of impeachment, they don't care, Mr. Lewandowski, what kind of impeachment you can deliver for them. There are 135 Democrats and socialists in the House of Representatives that have publicly come out for impeachment. They're in agreement the president needs to be impeached. The problem is they've come up with more than a dozen different reasons that they're arguing about are the basis for that impeachment. We've talked about impeachment by collusion. We've talked about impeachment by conspiracy. We've talked about impeachment by obstruction of justice. Let's cover a few more. Impeachment under the Emoluments Clause. Did the first and only president rich enough to largely self-fund a successful presidential campaign ever admit to you that he secretly ran for president to get rich?
No, sir.
Okay.
He's already very rich.
Do you have any information or evidence, Mr. Lewandowski, about crimes the president committed for ignoring congressional subpoenas as a basis of impeachment?
I do not.
How about dangling pardons? Do you know if the president, did he ever admit or say to you that he would pardon anybody in law enforcement who was trying to enforce or protect our territorial borders?
At the request of the White House, I can't discuss private conversations that may or may not occur with the president.
Okay, well, how about this one? How about impeachment by using a Sharpie on a hurricane weather map? Did the president ever admit or say to you that he intentionally committed an impeachable high crime by magic marker, as some of my Democratic colleagues are contending?
Again, Congressman, I can't discuss any private conversation I may have had with the president.
I'm sorry, you're frankly not being helpful at all, Mr. Lewandowski. Maybe you don't understand that the party of impeachment, they're not picky at all. They don't even care if you don't have impeachment. If you got anything on Donald Trump, how about on Justice Kavanaugh? Because this morning, now they say they want to impeach Justice Kavanaugh. Have you got anything that supports impeachment of Justice Kavanaugh?
He's a good man.
Well, listen, I know you're disappointed that you've only been here 4 times, but don't you think that there isn't going to be another opportunity? Because this committee has become the search party for impeachment, and they're going to bring back anybody as much as they have to find something, anything to keep this impeachment hoax alive. I yield back.
The work that the D.C. Health Department has done in their health
Gentleman yields
report,
back 15 seconds over time.
Mayor's task force this winter
gentlelady from California.
Around health systems.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Lewandowski, I want to follow up from my colleague here, Mr. Deutsch.
So we're happy to be able to
it's clear that the president was desperate for you to deliver the message to Sessions. Everyone else had said no, and he went to great lengths to make sure that you'd be effective in delivering it. After the president dictated the message, he told you to tell the Attorney General that he would be the most popular guy in the country if he delivered that message to limit the investigation to the future. Is that correct?
The big, shiny building.
Could you reference me to that in the report, please?
Yes, it's in volume 2, page 92. So is that correct?
I'd like to reference
Well,
that.
while you're looking, I'm going to move on. So the president is telling you how to convince Sessions to do it. It's page 92, first paragraph. To tell Sessions that he'd be the most popular guy in the country if he did what the president ordered. And the president picked you for a reason because he knew that you had the traits of an enforcer and described yourself as his, quote, loyal soldier. This was no exception. Did you find it now?
I have it here, Congressman.
Okay, so
and in Howard's case,
the Attorney General, that he would be the most popular guy in the country if he delivered that message. Do you see that on page 92?
I do.
So is that correct?
I believe it's accurate.
And you told the president that you understood what he wanted Sessions to do. Is that what you told the special counsel? Same page.
Thank you, Mayor Bowser. Good morning,
and you did
everyone.
understand what the president wanted. He knew not to create a trail.
Chief Executive Officer and Managing Director of the
looking at the slide, Lewandowski wanted to pass the message to Sessions in person rather than on the phone. Where is that?
I would like to extend my deep thanks and sincere
After you left the Oval Office, you didn't schedule an official meeting with Sessions. Instead, you called the Attorney General at home, correct?
And diligent attention to develop
if that's what's in the report.
System to address the inequities and disparities.
You told Sessions you wanted to meet in person rather than on the phone. You could have just read the message from the president over the phone, but you knew that it would make it harder to persuade Sessions to do what you wanted. So you wanted to meet with him in person, correct?
If that's what the report states, yes.
So the Attorney General works at the Department of Justice, but you told the special counsel that you didn't want to meet in the Department of Justice because you knew that if you went into a government building that there's a public log of the visit, and you specifically told the special counsel that you did not want to, quote, a public log of your visit. Isn't that right?
Together, we will
That's
develop
accurate.
an integrated hospital.
So why is that? Why didn't you want to leave a paper trail for your visit?
Well, Jeff and I are friends socially, and I want to have the opportunity to have a meal with Jeff and relay the conversation, which the president asked me to ask Jeff to consider giving.
So if that was the case, then why was there a problem with you having to do it in secret, essentially? I mean, it was a very important message you were delivering from the president, and it was a message that could certainly be viewed as completely inappropriate, considering that you were not even an employee of the White House. You're a private citizen. You're delivering a message to the Attorney General to limit the investigation. So if you didn't think you were doing anything wrong, then why would it matter that there was a public log?
I want to have the opportunity to speak with Jeff in a more relaxed atmosphere and have a meal with him to have the conversation.
Well, you said that another reason for not meeting at the DOJ was because you, quote, did not want Sessions to have an advantage over you by meeting on Sessions' turf. Is that right?
That's right. I want to have a private conversation in a more relaxed atmosphere.
So, again, if this was an appropriate message to deliver, and if it was just about that, why would it matter whose turf it was on? Why couldn't you go to his office? You're his friend. Why couldn't you go to his office and meet with him there?
I suppose I could have, but I chose to have I wanted to have a discussion with Jeff, as we have had so many occasions before that.
Exactly. I mean, I believe
never inside the Department of Justice.
Sessions knew that it was wrong, and that Sessions canceled his meeting with you. If you guys were good friends, why would he have bothered to cancel it? Did he call you up to reschedule it?
That'd be a question for Jeff Sessions.
Well, after you testified, and you testified earlier that after the inauguration you didn't communicate with the Attorney General often. You're a good friend and you have dinner with. So when you said that you had a message to deliver, isn't it fair to say that Sessions knew you were calling on behalf of the president and that that message was from him?
I have no idea what was in Jeff Sessions' mind.
To be clear, the Attorney General knew it was a message from the president, and he still refused to meet with you. Mr. Lewandowski, it's clear to me that Sessions knew what we all know sitting here today, that what you were doing was wrong. He wanted nothing to do with your secret messages because he knew it was entirely improper for a private citizen to go behind the backs of the White House counsel and secretly meet with him somewhere without any record of your meeting on your turf to try to persuade the Attorney General to protect the president from investigation into his own misconduct. Well, you can't protect him anymore. And I'm glad that this misconduct can finally be brought to public attention. session so that the president can be held accountable.
The gentlelady's time has expired. The witness has requested a short recess. The committee will resume in 5 minutes. The committee stands in recess.
Subsequent to that. I mentioned that because at the age of 22 with sickle cell, I was able to graduate from Howard University's medical school and pursue a general surgical residency there.
Well, you've been listening in to President Trump's former campaign manager, Corey Lewandowski, testifying. He is actually the first witness to testify before the Democratic impeachment probe there you see on Capitol Hill. We're going to take a short break. We're going to have more analysis on this, and we will continue to monitor this and cover it and bring it to you live.
Not just here in the U.S. that can happen. That opportunity has to be an opportunity that we have to continue to ensure is available for many, many more people with stories much more extraordinary than mine. And that's what we're doing today. And this commitment that you have made is a commitment that will ensure that that continues well into the future. This pandemic has exposed something that we have known for some time here, not just in the district, but throughout our country. African Americans are less likely to have the type of access to quality health care, and the social determinants of health are not in their favor in many communities in which they live. This is a significant investment in ensuring that that disparity here in the district continues to be closed. The district has done an excellent job of putting out health equity reports. They've been transparent, the district government, about what the need is, and they have been very, very fastidious in their attempts to try to help close this. This demonstrates that partnership with important institutions such as these two universities in the district would allow us to lead in the country in terms of building a complete health system. This is not about two hospitals, and I want to make sure that we underscore that point that the mayor made earlier and that the city administrator doubled down on. This is about training the next future generation of leaders in healthcare. This is about making sure we close the gap on all the social determinants of health. And this is about ensuring that access is as widely available as it should be for all Americans, and certainly for those who are most vulnerable in our midst. Howard University's hospital was first built as Freedman's Hospital back in the 1800s. It actually predated Howard University's college, Howard University as an educational institution. Predated that, and it was built for the purpose of serving freed slaves moving from the South, and that's why it earns its name, Freedman's Hospital. That was transferred to the university back in 1962, and the university had a hospital built by the federal government in 1971. That public partnership continues today, with the District of Columbia making its investment in what I think is one of America's biggest romance stories ever. When you look at the number of black physicians in this country, Howard University has produced more than anyone else. Today we send more African Americans to medical school than anyone else, and we continue to do that. We have probably trained more black female surgeons in this country than any one single institution. So when you talk about the importance of cultural competency as a social determinant of health, it is not just important for the District of Columbia, but as the mayor pointed out, this is a national and international initiative. The physicians who took care of me and my siblings as kids were Howard University graduates, all the way in Trinidad and Tobago. So the impact of this institution is an international impact. And so this investment really is a tremendous investment. We have a partnership with Adventist Healthcare that allows us to expand our network and our support to bring clinical excellence and managerial experience that is of the best. And that already during this.
How many times has the president asked you to meet him in the White House?
When we have run low in PPE, our regional partner.
The White House is directed not to disclose the substance of any discussion.
How many times did you meet with the president alone in the White House in 2017?
I don't know the answer to that.
How many times did he direct you to deliver a message to a member of his cabinet?
The White House is directed not to disclose the substance of any discussions with the president.
Did he ever discuss with you any concerns that he may have committed a criminal offense?
The White House is directed not to disclose the substance of any discussions with the president or his advisors to protect executive branch confidentiality. I recognize this is not my privilege.
Well, that was former Trump campaign manager Corey Lewandowski refusing to answer questions about his conversations with President Trump. This hearing is in a short recess for 5 minutes, and it's set to resume. And when it does, we're going to take you there live. But for now, I want to bring in CBS News Chief Congressional Correspondent Nancy Cordes, who joins us by phone. Nancy, at the beginning, a great deal of back and forth as to whether or not this hearing would even take place.
that supports
That's right.
the
And
healthcare,
Republicans are
in
looking for
Washington,
stalling
D.C.
mechanisms. Democrats accuse
Certainly, I think today will
Lewandowski
be
of trying
historic
to
for
stall.
more
He
reasons
was
than
asking
one,
them
but certainly,
to list
again,
not
I
just
think
the
will
page from the Mueller
underscore
report,
the mayor's
but the
leadership and the
paragraph
mayor's
on that
vision
page
well
for
into the
all
future.
the early questions
Thank
they
you
were
very much.
asking him. But things have sort of settled down
So
since
we
then, Rena, and
will
he is
take some
giving them
questions,
somewhat
and as I
substantive
mentioned,
answers
we
as
also
they
joined by
walk him
Mr.
through the
Ford
Mueller
and
report
Dr. Bass,
and his
we'll start, yes, on
exchanges
topic,
with the president
Thank you.
about delivering this message to the attorney general that the president had asked him to give, basically telling Sessions what the president wanted Sessions to say, even though Sessions had been recused himself from the Mueller investigation, basically telling Sessions that the president wanted him to dial back.
Sure,
the
let me clarify. We never
and make
opposed
sure
the
that it had
hospital.
nothing to
We
do
actually are
with the
strong
president or his
proponents of
campaign.
having a hospital in Ward 7
Lewandowski
and
was
8.
asked
Large number of our
repeatedly whether
patients
he
come
thought that there was anything
from Ward
wrong
7 and 8.
with the
What we
message
were
that he
concerned
was
about
asked
and
to
expressing
give
a
to
concern
Attorney
over
General
was whether or
Sessions,
not
both
we
the
would be able
substance
to
of the
continue
message
to
and also
participate
the
there,
fact
and
that
whether or
he,
not our
someone who
students
was
and
not
residents would
employed by the
also
White House,
be able to
was
see
the one
patients
who was asked to
from
deliver the
that
message.
at
And
that
Lewandowski
hospital.
repeatedly
What
said
this has done
he
in
didn't
terms
think
of
that there
helping
was anything
resolve
wrong
that
with
with
that
our
message. He
partnership
didn't
with
think that it was
Adventist
improper.
Healthcare,
He didn't
our
think that it was
students
illegal.
and
But that doesn't
residents can
exactly
now
square with the fact that
see patients
Lewandowski, who
at
is
the
someone that we
Adventist
know
sites as
is
well.
very
So
loyal to
there's
the
no
president,
concern about
never
that
delivered the
clinical
message
volume.
for
And
some
we've
reason.
also
He says
built
it's
an
because he went on
ambulatory
vacation, but
practice
obviously he's
in
quite
Ward
loyal to the
7
president,
in conjunction
and he
with
tells
Unity,
you
where
to
our
deliver a
subspecialists
message,
have started
and
seeing
you
patients
don't have any problem with that
at that
message.
site
One would
last
think that you would
fall.
deliver it
And
right
that
away,
practice
but
actually
didn't.
has been
And
going
so
very well. So we
Democrats
still have
have
access
tried
to the
to say that
patient
he was a
population.
chicken, that he got
Those
cold feet at
patients,
the end
some
of
of
the
those
day.
patients are
He
going to
said, no,
continue
that's not it.
to
But
see us as
we
well,
do
and
know
obviously
from the
we're
Mueller
going
report
to
that he
attract more
eventually
patients
asked
from Ward
a
1 and
White
5
House
as well.
aide, Rick Dearborn, to deliver the message instead. Dearborn said he was uncomfortable with it and never
Yeah,
did.
we're not insisting that
So,
we be a
Nancy,
part of
we
the
know there's a
hospital
divide
because
within the
two things that
Democratic
we
Party
were
as to
concerned
whether or
about,
not
which
to
was
even
clinical
continue
volume
forward
and the
on
ability to make sure
impeachment
that we can
inquiries.
maintain that.
At
And
this
also
point, what do
improvements
you
in our own
believe
facilities
that
we
Democrats are
have been taking care of
strategizing?
here
What do they
today,
hope to
as
get
well as
from
our
Lewandowski
partnership
over the
that
next
preceded this
over
with
the course of this
Adventist
afternoon?
also expanded
Well, what's so
our
unique about
volume and
Lewandowski is that
our
he's
opportunity
really
for our
the
students and
first
residents.
major player who's featured in the Mueller report who's coming to testify before the House Judiciary Committee directly about his role in
we're
incidents
continuing
that
to
were
see an increase in
detailed by the
patients. We're
Mueller
not
report. And in fact,
overwhelmed. We
he
have
took notes
expanded
in
our
his
bed
meeting with the
capacity, our
president.
ICU
The president said,
capacity
write this
as
down
well.
word for word.
I think we're
This
seeing
is
similar
what
things
I
to what the
want
rest of
you
the
to
country is
have
seeing in
the
terms
Attorney
of
General
ventilator
Jeff Sessions
usage.
say in a speech, and
And the need for
Lewandowski
ventilators in
not
these
only took
patients
those
is
notes,
also
but he
going up.
preserved them, and
But
those notes are
I
now
have
in
to
the
underscore
Mueller
that
report, and they've been
more
reading the notes
importantly,
back
what
to
we're seeing is
Lewandowski
some of the
repeatedly
psychological
in this hearing
impact this
because
is
he
going to have on
refuses
all
to
of
read
us
them
for a
aloud
long
himself.
while. Having an empty campus
Democrats think it's
2
very
weeks before
worthwhile
graduation
to
is
get
something
him
we all
on the
have to
record
take pause
squirming,
and
frankly,
think about.
about
This is
why
going to have a
it is
devastating
that he was
impact
asked to
for
deliver
some
this
time to
message,
come.
why he doesn't think
The
there was
unemployment
anything
that has
improper about
resulted
it,
in
why
terms
he
of the
didn't deliver it.
change in the
They
economy
think that
as well is
brings
going
the
to be
Mueller
devastating.
report
And
to
so while
life
we're in this
for
moment
the
and we're
American people. And
sitting
while there
still
may
in the
be
eye of
some
the storm,
dispute among Democrats
we do
about
have to be
the
thoughtful
timing
about
and
what is going to
robustness
happen
of
subsequent to
an
this as well.
impeachment
And so we're
inquiry,
thinking
there
about that
really
as we think
isn't
about the
much
fall
dispute among
and bringing
Democrats
students
about
back to
the
campus.
fact
I still
that
see this as a university
some
town,
kind of
Ms.
obstruction of
Mayor.
justice
I know
may have taken
Boston tries
place
to boast that, but if you do the
surrounding
math,
the Mueller
we have more
investigation, and they
students
all
per
support
capita
the
than any
Judiciary
other
Committee
city,
trying
even
to
Boston
probe in
probably.
any
So,
way it can
and
the
that's a big deal.
circumstances
I mean, in our consortium of universities, there are 17 universities, we'll bring 300,000
And while the
young
Judiciary
people
Committee has the
back to this
power and the
area.
ability
So
to
we have
probe,
participate,
Republicans were raising one big concern about where this is all headed. I want to play for you a bite from just a short time
recognize
ago.
that we're part of a bigger ecosystem as well,
let's
and we have a
read the Mueller
responsibility
report
to
for
all the
audiobook.
citizens
That's
of
what
the
we
District of
become.
Columbia to
We
make
had
sure that we
Mr.
do
Mueller
the
here.
appropriate things to make sure
Had
everybody
a
is safe
long
and
day of
healthy.
it. Judging by all accounts, it didn't go real well. But here's the problem. 17 of the members of the Judiciary Committee have said that they think the president ought to be impeached. So why are we still investigating it? 17, you get some more. The problem is you don't have the votes. You don't have the numbers. And even if you got it out of this committee, you don't have it on the floor. That's your problem.
You don't have the votes, Nancy. What do you make of his statement
knowing
there?
that the district wanted
Well, I think the
to
Democrats
have
would
a
argue
hospital
that,
partner.
that's
We
why
do a
you
lot
hold
of
hearings
things
just
really
like
well
this
in
one, so
Washington,
that you
D.C.,
can
but
get the votes. You can convince your colleagues
we
and
believe
and
that we should be
convince the
connected to
American
a
people.
system,
But the argument
and
that
that I
Republicans
think
have been
Howard
making
Came,
repeatedly in
when
this
it has
hearing,
that
and
type
it's
of
true, is
partnership
that
now, and we
Corey
believe that the
Lewandowski has now
district's hospital
testified
should have a
before
partnership with
Congress
a larger
multiple
system.
times, and he did it
In that larger
voluntarily.
system,
He
our
also
partner will
spoke
be
to the special
UHS,
counsel
in that process.
Republicans say
and you
this
mentioned
is a stunt,
Mayor
that
Gray.
there is no
He has been very instrumental at the council in securing and protecting the $300 million investment that will go into the construction of the new building, which is very important. So we have all of the ingredients. You asked me why I'm confident now. We have the agreements in place. We have the funding in place. We've also been able to address some very serious questions that have been raised and have made a really tremendous investment in making sure that another very important hospital to our entire system, the hospital that is centrally located on Howard University, and is a teaching hospital and a training hospital for future doctors for America and the world, is all very important. All of those things are embodied in what we're discussing today.
Both of them from appearing, and so Lewandowski, who was never a White House official,
to echo the mayor's point, we've been in this negotiation.
And as you mentioned, he's the first witness to testify in this House Democratic impeachment probe. Do you expect other people, Nancy, to follow potentially? Where do you see this headed?
Together.
Well, he's in kind of a unique category, Rena, because he was not a White House official. Other individuals who played key roles in the incidents laid out in the Mueller report are current or former White House officials. Hope Hicks, Rob Porter, Rick Dearborn, Don McGahn, the former White House counsel. They all have some cover from the White House and from the Department of Justice, which is saying, and Democrats argue that this is bogus, that they don't have to testify because they have something that DOJ is calling absolute immunity. Democrats have very strenuously argued that this is something that doesn't actually exist, that is being made up for this purpose, but nevertheless, those individuals are not showing up, even though they've been subpoenaed. And so Democrats are going to milk this hearing for all it's worth because they don't know when it is that they'll have another opportunity to grill someone who had the same kind of access to the president that Corey Lewandowski had, and yet was not someone who worked for the White House and therefore can be prevented by the White House from testifying.
Nancy, if you could hang with us, I want to also bring in Steve Dorsey into this conversation. He joins us by phone. He's
Sure.
the executive editor and correspondent for CBS
Mark, I don't
News
think it's an
Radio.
issue
So, Steve, I want to talk a little bit more about what Nancy was mentioning. The two White House aides that were supposed to be here but are not because the White House told them not to show up. Walk us through what their reasoning is.
Yeah, well, their whole reasoning is that the president prevented them from testifying using executive privilege to shield them. And we got a statement not too long ago from the lawyer for Rob Porter, one of the two men that did not show up to this hearing alongside Corey Lewandowski. He says that Mr. Porter is currently under conflicting and contradictory directives from two co-equal branches, Congress and the President, who has instructed him not to appear at today's hearing. And he says he's communicated to House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jerry Nadler that when this conflict is resolved, he will provide the appropriate testimony.
We're standing by. We see Corey Lewandowski just feet away from taking his seat there. I do want to ask you, though, Steve, have you gotten any sort of reaction from the White House on what they've seen so far from this testimony?
The life expectancy
so far, the White House hasn't publicly weighed in on the performance of Corey Lewandowski, but it's clear that they've been satisfied so far with how the President's closest aides have been performing
a children's emergency, pediatric emergency center
at the facility
and it's not likely we'll hear any statement that's very complex
as you're joining us now, we are standing by. We are watching today the testimony within the House Judiciary Committee. You see Chairman there, Jerry Nadler, about to take his seat, looking around. Corey Lewandowski, President Trump's former campaign manager, was testifying, has been testifying this afternoon. And that testimony is expected to resume. It's at a 5-minute break at this point. Nancy, I see Nadler taking his seat. I might have to interrupt in a second. But boy, at the beginning of this was a bit of a lesson in how motions and point of orders. I wonder if folks in classes across America might replay this to explain how these hearings are conducted.
Right, and Corey Lewandowski is known to be someone
I
who
think you mistake
can
what
give
a level one is, and the fact there will be surgeons at this hospital.
Going in, and so we've seen a lot of contentious hearings here on Capitol Hill and in the House Judiciary Committee, and this was even more contentious because he came loaded for bear, and he wasn't going to make this any easier for Democrats than it needed to be. What's going to be so interesting about this hearing and why Republicans are so eager to sort of discredit it from from the outset is that because of the rule change that went into effect last week,
I think it will be a work in progress, but we are anticipating that we'll be able to have surgical coverage in-house 24/7.
Staff members for the committee will actually have the opportunity to grill Lewandowski for an hour after all the lawmakers have had their chance. So that'll be a pretty unusual scenario. It almost seems like a deposition. You don't have lawmakers grandstanding asking their 5 minutes worth of questions. You have lawyers basically asking him very specific questions, and you could have one lawyer from the Democratic side, for instance, just asking him very detailed questions for a
let me back up there.
Hour. No opportunity
certainly
for him
this budget
to
is
filibuster
an
and kind of eat
incredible
up the time
challenge.
for one lawmaker before you move
Make
on
no
to the
mistake
next.
about it. Cutting $721 million out of the operating budget in this fiscal year and $750 million next fiscal year is no easy task. Cutting $1.2 billion out of the capital budget is no easy task. But the district still has a budget of about
And why did they decide to make that rule change, Nancy, last week?
We still have a capital budget
because
that is
one of the
about
frustrations that
$6.5 to $7 billion. So there are resources to be invested. And what we've got to do is make critical choices, and the mayor's got to make critical choices about where those investments ought to go. And we recognize that addressing this issue of health disparities and making sure that there is access, that we can address what are these inequities is where we have to make decisions to invest money.
Most of the members on this committee are lawyers themselves. They're prosecutors, and they say that they should be equipped to ask the questions. They don't need staffers to do it for them.
Nancy, thank you so much for giving us that background on this as well. I want to take you back to the House Judiciary Committee with Chairman Jerry Nadler.
But we see this as a critical investment for our community,
deprive the American people of the president that they duly elected. Well, that didn't turn out to be the case. So then, it was all about bringing the Attorney General in, Bill Barr. He was certainly going to point out the inconsistencies and flaws in the analysis. Well, that didn't happen because the majority wanted to insist that their unelected staff ask questions of the Attorney General of the United States. But no, they said, we'll go to court, we'll win, we'll force Bill Barr and Don McGahn to come and testify. They're not winning in court. They're not here. It's a joke. For the last 4 months, the path the majority has taken us on has rambled from disorganized to just downright dizzying. In June, Speaker Pelosi said the House Democratic Caucus was, and I'm quoting, not even close to an impeachment inquiry. That was to CNN. In July, House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jerry Nadler said, quote, an impeachment inquiry is when you consider only impeachment. That's not what we're doing. We're investigating all of this. But then in August, in a CNN interview, Nadler said, this is a formal impeachment proceeding. And then in September, when asked if the Democrats are engaged in an impeachment inquiry, the House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer answered, no.
The council considered the new hospital.
It was the gentlelady from Washington who said just recently, Ms. Jayapal, we have been in the midst of an impeachment investigation. She said that to Politico. But then in the very same story, the gentleman from Connecticut, Mr. Himes, said, no, we're not in an impeachment investigation. Then the gentleman from New York, Mr. Gregory Meeks, said, when asked if the House was investigating impeachment, he said, well, maybe there's we don't know whether the impeachment investigation has begun. It's just dizzying. Last week, it was the Judiciary Chairman, Jerry Nadler, who said, what we're doing is very clear. It's been very clear. It continues to be very clear. The Speaker has backed us at every point along the way. This process has been about as clear as Joe Biden's last answer to race relations that involved turning on the record player. We don't know where we are or what we're doing. Now, Mr. Lewandowski, I am not allowed by House rules to impugn the motives of my colleagues or to speculate as to what might be animating this bizarre circumstance. But those rules don't apply to you. So, Mr. Lewandowski, do you have a thought thought as to why we continue to engage in a charade that is overwhelmingly opposed by the American people and fundamentally misunderstood by my Democrat colleagues.
Places conditions.
You know, Congressman, I think they hate this president more than they love their country.
And then for the
Fennett, are you
Mr.
there?
Lewandowski.
Okay, we'll have to
Mr.
get Fennett
Lewandowski,
back. Amanda,
you were the campaign manager for the president's campaign when the Obama-Biden administration was notified that there might be efforts by the Russians to interfere with our election. Isn't that right?
Yes.
And can you describe for us the briefing you got as the campaign manager to ensure that our system was resilient and American democracy was protected?
There was no briefing provided by anybody from the Obama-Biden administration, members of the intelligence community, or the FBI to our campaign when I was president, or during my tenure as the campaign manager.
I mean, that's just baffling to me. I mean, our democracy is so precious. We have to cherish it. We have to protect it. And yet, when the Obama-Biden administration knew that there might be nefarious efforts to interfere or co-opt or in any way disturb our democracy, they didn't say anything to you. Now, as you sit here today, having watched these facts unfold, do you have any
specifically there was a
rationale as to why maybe
National
the
Labor Relations
Clapper,
Board judge in
Brennan,
September
Comey,
that said
Obama-Biden team didn't want to
law
give the
by
Trump
engaging in
campaign a
aggressive
fair
bargaining
defensive
with
briefing
unionized
about the
workers.
threats that we were facing?
It's actually unfathomable to me that they didn't contact
Well, let me
the
just
major
say
political
what I have made
nominee
clear, to
for
UHS
President of the United
is,
States and inform them
that
of
we
potential
only
threats
support an
against
agreement with them
the
and
election
working with
process in
them,
2016.
If they follow the
And
expectations
we could be
that the
finding
city
that out now.
administrator
I mean, we
just
could
laid
have
out.
those people before our
And we
committee
would
to
not
figure out
expect
what in the world
management to
happened
look,
that
in
didn't
this
allow
case
us to
or
get
in
those
any
answers.
case,
One final question for you, Mr.
from
Lewandowski.
blocking,
Has an
employees'
inspector
ability
general
to organize.
employed by the United States government ever accused you of breaking the law?
Do you have any other questions, Amanda?
No, but they have done that with James Comey, and yet the leadership of this committee will not bring James Comey before, even though the Inspector General said that his work impaired the credibility and efforts of over 35,000 FBI agents and the brave people fighting for our country. It's a shame that you're here, Mr. Lewandowski. Jim Comey should be sitting in that chair. He should be answering questions about why he did so much damage to the FBI in our country, including not giving you the briefing that you were entitled to. I yield back.
That we don't want every employee to have the opportunity to have a job there. Now, this is a smaller facility. There will be fewer
before I begin, let me remind you, Mr. Lewandowski, that this is not a Republican primary campaign. You are not on the campaign trail yet. This is the House Judiciary Committee. Act like you know the difference.
And Mayor, if I may add,
you've never worked for the Trump White House in any official capacity, correct?
Out with UHS.
That's right.
With their
but you do speak with President Trump with some regularity, true?
Workforce development initiative.
I think it's a fair statement.
That not only
in fact, during the summer of 2017, according to testimony to the special counsel, you were summoned to the White House by President Trump on at least 2 occasions, correct?
The workforce at UMC.
I don't believe the report says that, Congressman.
Okay, well, you met with the president one-on-one on June 19th, 2017, and then again on July 19th, 2017, correct?
Facility. And so in partnership with UHS,
yes, I believe that's accurate.
Okay, let's try to get some clarity on what exactly you do for Donald Trump, since you're not a government employee. You stated during the 2016 Republican National Convention that
to be as competitive as possible.
I got the reputation as a tough guy. That's my reputation. Do you recall making that statement, Mr. Lewandowski?
I don't.
Okay. In the public record. Your job is to be Donald Trump's political enforcer, correct?
I wonder if you could comment on today's coronavirus.
No, I don't believe so.
Let me ask the question another way. Are you the hitman, the bag man, the lookout, or all of the above?
You are right, John.
I think I'm the good-looking man, actually.
That we had today, sadly.
President Trump told you on June 19, 2017, to personally deliver a message to Attorney General Sessions that would have ended the criminal investigation into the Trump campaign, correct?
I don't believe that's what the Mueller report states no.
President Trump wanted Attorney General Sessions to limit the special counsel's investigation to future incidents of election foreign interference. True?
We all have to continue.
Which page is that on, Congressman?
That's in the public record. It's in this hearing. It's in the Mueller report. Now, the White House has a legal protocol for presidential statements. Under the Presidential Records Act, they must preserve all memos, letters, emails, papers, like the note he dictated to you. So you wrote down the president's message, which you then stored in a safe in your home. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay. You told the special counsel that was your standard procedure with sensitive items, correct?
And they should only do essential exercise in their neighborhood.
Where is that reference in the report to you sent?
Volume 2, page 92.
Just reference that 1 second, Congressman.
You don't have to reference it. The president asked you to...
You say page 90, Congressman?
The president asked you to reclaiming my time. The president asked you to record a message from him on June 19th because he wanted to hide his message from eventual disclosure. Isn't that right?
No.
Okay.
But you never delivered the message to Jeff Sessions after that June 19th meeting, true?
That's accurate.
Mayor Bowser.
It said you testified that you went on vacation, correct?
I did.
How long was your vacation, Mr. Lewandowski?
Some of which have already been addressed in
Oh, it was lengthy. I think at least 2 weeks.
At least 2 weeks. But you were summoned again to the White House on July 19th, 30 days after the original June 19th meeting, true?
I believe that's accurate, yes.
So you weren't on vacation the entire time, correct?
Come around to this deal.
Oh, I didn't say I was on vacation the entire time. I was on vacation for 2 weeks, Congressman.
Right, but you still failed to deliver the message, and it had nothing to do, at least in part, to your so-called vacation. Now, the July 19th meeting occurred just a few days after new information came to light about Russian operatives meeting with high-level Trump campaign officials. When you're summoned to the White House after that July 19th meeting, by that time, you still hadn't delivered the message to Jeff Sessions. You said to the president you would do it soon, according to Volume 2, page 93, correct?
If that's what the report says, that's accurate.
Okay. President Trump also asked you to deliver a message to Attorney General Sessions that if he didn't do what was requested, he would be fired. Correct? Volume 2, page 93.
I think that's what was reported, yes.
Okay, President Trump wanted you to intimidate Attorney General Sessions, correct?
Well, you'd have to ask President Trump that.
Okay. Now, you stated earlier today that President Trump asked you to take down dictation, quote, many times. Is that correct?
That unwavering
it is.
Commitment that
but on page 91, volume 2 of the Mueller report, it states, quote, the president then asked Lewandowski to deliver a message to Sessions and said, quote, write this down, close quote. This was the first time the president had asked Lewandowski to take direct dictation. The first time.
Those are not my words, Congressman. Those are the investigators' words.
Right. Did you lie about Mueller, or are you lying to us?
I didn't lie.
Okay. You're not really here to tell the truth. You are here to participate in a continuing cover-up. Russia interfered with this election in sweeping and systematic fashion. The Trump campaign welcomed that assistance at the highest level. There were subsequent acts of obstruction of justice with respect to the investigation. The American people deserve to know the truth.
Chairman, gentleman yields back.
That the operating responsibility
I think I was 19 seconds over to help you, Mr. Chairman.
We kept those tenants
the
before us, I think, on
Mr.
both
Johnson.
sides.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Lewandowski, my colleague, Mr. Jeffries, just started that last line of questioning with a sort of an admonition to you. He said this is the House Judiciary Committee and not a political forum, and it would be nice if you recognize that. I think it'd be nice if all the members of this committee would recognize that, because that's the reason that this has turned into such a farce. It's been said so many times today, this committee is so important to the country. It has one of the broadest jurisdictions over so many critical issues that are facing the country. You referenced some of this in your opening statement, and I, among many of my colleagues, are ready to get to that work for the American people, but we're here today. There hasn't been any fireworks. Oh, there's a lot of disappointed people around, operatives around the country who are really hoping that there'd be fireworks, but we're not surprised at all. I have a couple of questions just for clarification for the record.
Yes,
first, is there anything that's been said here, any question that you've been asked about, or something that you would like to provide further comment on, just to clarify the record?
Working well?
No, sir.
How's that
all right. In questioning today, is the majority investigating any new allegation or issue or fact not already investigated by the House and Senate Intel Committees or the Special Counsel's Office?
We've talked recently about yesterday.
Not to the best of my knowledge.
First Lady Michelle Obama.
Do you have any more information on any other matter related to either collusion or obstruction that you can offer to this committee that you have not already shared with Congress or the Special Counsel's Office?
Conditions.
I don't believe I have any new information.
In your prior testimony to the Special Counsel, is it true that you answered every question asked of you truthfully and to the best of your ability and your recollection?
To the best of my recollection, I did answer truthfully, yes.
A couple of things just for further clarification. We're afraid that some of this record will be obscured today, so let me just, these will just be quick rapid fire. Do you agree there is no evidence the President intended to obstruct justice?
I do.
Do you agree that the President has been harassed politically since the day he took office?
Yes, I do.
Do you agree that the President's supporters have received vastly different treatment than the supporters of Hillary Clinton?
Unequivocally.
You've called this a witch hunt, and I wonder if you'd like to elaborate on that any further.
And secondly,
I think that this fake Russia collusion narrative is the greatest crime committed against the American people in our generation, if not ever. This is a president who was duly elected by the American people, and members of certain bodies refuse to accept those election results. If this were done by a different president, to a different party, the same way it was done to Donald Trump, that person would already be thrown out of office and people would be in jail. But when you support Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama, there's a different set of rules. I think the American people find it very unfair, and there's been no accountability at the highest levels of the government for the Pfizer abuse applications which transpired, the spying on Americans clearly in violation of the Fourth Amendment, or the lives that were ruined because they simply wanted to support a candidate for President of the United States, and I think it's shameful.
We do as well, and that's a pretty good recitation of some of the issues that are keeping us up at night. Part of the thing that we're greatly concerned about is the American people's distrust now of our institutions. When people begin to doubt that the rule of law actually applies equally, that justice really is blind in this country, that we reach somewhat of a tipping point. It's very difficult to put that genie back in the bottle, and we're concerned. I know the Republicans and the conservatives on this committee are deeply concerned about the eroding faith in our institutions. I'm thankful you've come to take the hostile fire today. I commend you for that. I commend you for your story being self-made. And one of the things I'm also concerned about is young people who are watching this who may have a disincentive to get into politics and to serve their country in this way because of this abuse that they've suffered. Yield to Mr. Jordan.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. Real quick, Mr. Lewandowski, you know why you didn't get a defensive briefing from the FBI?
I do not.
I got a good idea. I think they were trying to trap the president. Page 17 of the Inspector General's report points this out. January 6, 2017, they go up to the Trump Tower when it's President-elect Trump, and they're trying to set him up about a pending investigation. All the while, Mr. Comey's been telling the president, you're not under investigation. Of course, they didn't give you a defensive briefing during the campaign or even when up until that date because they were trying to set him up. But we can't ask about that because Mr. Nadler hasn't even thought about when he's going to bring Mr. Horowitz in to answer our questions. He'd rather subpoena you even though you're willing to come voluntarily. That's the problem. I thank the gentleman for his good line of question. Thank him for yielding. I yield back.
Thank the gentleman from Ohio, and I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Rhode Island.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Lewandowski, in between your first meeting on June 19th and your second meeting with the President on July 19th, you went on vacation, and also during that time there was public reporting about the Trump Tower meeting, correct? This is on page 92.
If it's in the report, I believe it to be accurate.
On July 19th, when the President for a second time asked you to deliver the message to Sessions, you said, and I quote, the message would be delivered soon, page 93. Correct?
Well, thank you, Dr. Frederick, for that.
Page 93.
But you didn't. You didn't call Jeff Sessions. You didn't try to meet with him. So the President asked you twice in the Oval Office to deliver a secret message to the Attorney General of the United States, a message that you quickly wrote down word for word at the President's direction.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Sir?
I believe I wrote it down.
Yes,
and when you worked for the President during his campaign, did you ever ignore or disobey directions from candidate Trump?
Go ahead, Tom. We can hear you.
I didn't believe it to be in order.
All right, thank you very much,
Just to be clear, although you were not working for the president in any capacity, you wanted to give the president the impression that you were going to follow his orders, correct?
120-bed addition on his campus.
Well, you said, I'm going to take care of it.
Is that alive or dead? Is that part of this deal?
Is that referenced in the report?
Did you tell the president you were going to deliver the message?
I can't comment on private conversations.
Sir, it's on page.
Executive privilege.
I'm sorry?
I can read you the exact statement again if you'd like me to. I said the White House has directed that I not disclose the substance of any discussions with the president or his advisors to protect executive branch confidentiality.
You're not going to stonewall me in my questioning.
Would you like me to answer your question?
Spinning. You're here with the president of the United States in the Oval Office. He's directing you to deliver a message to the chief law enforcement officer in the United States, which you understood would effectively end the ongoing investigation into this president and his campaign. So you told the president that the message would be delivered soon. But then, this is on page 93, you immediately, following the meeting with the president, you gave Dearborn the message the president had dictated to be delivered to Sessions, correct?
Maybe the George Washington University
I believe that's what the report says.
And you didn't tell the president that you'd already asked Dearborn to deliver the message. You just said it would be delivered soon. This is on page 92, correct?
Partner with GW to determine.
It's on page 92. You didn't want to tell the president that you were passing off his message to someone else, did you? You knew he wanted you, someone he had described as his enforcer, a loyal soldier, to do it because the president trusted you. Isn't that right?
That's a question for the president, sir.
Then, well, why didn't you then deliver the message to Mr. Dearborn, to Jeff Sessions directly? Why did you give it to Mr. Dearborn to do?
I think I've testified I was out of town.
For 2 weeks.
I don't live in town, Congressman. Unlike you, sir, I don't live in town.
During your second meeting in the Oval Office, the president told you that if Sessions wouldn't meet with you,
we want to test
he was
everybody who needs to be tested, and that is the goal of getting our supplies up. And we continue to procure supplies.
No.
We're involved with
Did you tell Mr. Dearborn to tell Sessions that he would be fired if he didn't take this meeting as the president directed?
Task Force, for
Congressman, the White House has directed not to disclose the substance of any discussion with the president or his advisors to protect executive branch confidentiality.
The reason you didn't tell the president that was because you know
so we want to learn a little bit more about that.
And the president,
and in fact, tell them the numbers that we.
Well, the president wasn't aware that you ignored his directive to tell Jeff Sessions he was fired if he didn't meet with you, was he?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
I'll move on. In fact, to prove to the Attorney General that the threat was real, 4 days later, on July 22nd, the president directed Priebus, his chief of staff, to obtain Sessions' resignation. That's on the slide in front of you. The president told Priebus that he had to get Sessions to resign immediately. Did you know that?
No.
This evidence as a whole strongly suggests that the president was reinforcing to Sessions that his job was on the line at the same time as the president believed you were delivering the message to end the investigation into the 2016 campaign. All of this made everyone very uncomfortable, including Mr. Dearborn, which is at page 93. And he told you that he was uncomfortable being a message,
to both is no.
The messenger to Sessions,
and I'm happy to look at the specific instances you're talking about, and we will.
Well, were you aware when you asked Rick Dearborn to deliver this message to the Attorney General on behalf of the President of the United States?
Not only do I have confidence in Karima Holmes, we are lucky to have Karima Holmes run our 911 center. She is renowned around the country.
Are you aware of that?
She has done every job in a 911 call center that there is, from call taker to trainer to supervisor
when you asked Mr. Dearborn to deliver this message to end the investigation and just focus on future investigations, you thought you were protecting yourself, but you were, in fact, committing a crime. Rick Dearborn knew delivering the message was wrong. You knew it was wrong. That's why even after being asked to deliver it and saying you'd handle it soon, you
so there are a couple
of
things.
And you never followed up. And guess what?
First
I
on
also think it's very wrong. In fact, I think the
hospital,
president asking a private citizen to try to scare his attorney
so
general into ending the investigation into the president's conduct is obstruction
our
of justice,
partnership is
plain and simple.
In terms of investment is in 3 areas. One, the tax abatement, so it's worth $225 million. To the $25 million infrastructure investment, which will be reflected in the mayor's capital budget. And 3, the $26 million over 6 years for the Centers of Excellence. And so that is our financial commitment to the Howard Hospital Initiative. Those 3 areas. In terms of the partnership that we have with UHS, We have certainly the capital commitment that we are going to invest.
It's beneath this committee, quite frankly. We're here.
Create
ostensibly, they tell me that
and then we have what we have called
You're here to tell the truth today, right,
operating
Yes,
reserve.
And
so within
fact,
the first
you've given
5 years
lots
of the
testimony.
agreement,
You've told the truth repeatedly. I see a list of 302s
the
when you were
hospital
talking
runs a negative
to the
deficit,
FBI, right?
They can draw upon a capped and limited
those
amount
302s,
of money
they didn't record
to
that.
bring
Those
them
are
to a break-even
after
status.
notes, right?
I believe that's right.
If
you gave testimony
if they're better than break even,
the intelligence committees
they
of
won't
both
have
houses,
access to that fund.
Right?
And if they're worse than break
so here
even,
you sit here today.
There is a capped amount that is available through the first 10 years of operations. After that 10th year, then the profit and loss stands on its own, and there's no additional subsidy. We're also working, because this is a heavily Medicaid population that we anticipate, we're working to address better Medicaid reimbursement for patients that come into the hospital, which will help support that cost of care.
You're the one. We've been looking for you.
Yeah, I'm the one. And your name is all over this report. But oddly enough, when you were asked by a member of the other side to look at volume 2, page 86, and they wanted you to testify to it, you might be surprised. Your name's not even mentioned on that page. You know that? You're not even mentioned there. They were asking you questions to comment about things where your name's not even there. Did you know that?
No, sir.
That same person then asked you to talk about page 49 and 50, volume 2. Guess what?
So let me just address this again.
Did you know
this hospital will see thousands
and
thousands and thousands of patients.
To comment
a very small number
so
will be gunshot victims, as we refer to. And it isn't inconsequential that a person suffers from and is a victim of gun violence and needs medical care. We take that very seriously, and this mayor and this administration has focused intently on
during my tenure
gun
at the
violence and
campaign
violent crime in a number of ways. In addition to what we're trying to do with our health system,
foreign
and in part,
agencies,
in fact,
or
of our
foreign governments
investment
who are
with Howard
attempting to
University is around violence
impact the outcome of the election. I've said
studying
very
violence
publicly,
prevention and having
if
better
anybody
ways
did
to
attempt to
prevent those
impact the
things
outcome
from
of the
occurring.
election in a legal
But
manner,
in terms of the
I hope they spend
inpatient
the rest of their
facility
lives
in
in
the
jail.
hospital,
Yeah,
thousands of patients will come.
We know
A
that
very small
on
fraction
January 2019,
will
on
be
the Chris
the victim
Matthews
of
show,
this
a member of
kind
this
of,
committee
or have
was
this kind
asked,
of
do you
care
believe the
need.
president right now has been an
Even
agent of the
being
Russians?
said,
That was me.
If you
That member
receive
said,
a critical
Chris
wound
Chris
of any
Matthews
sort,
followed up
whether
and
it's a
said, an
gunshot
agent
victim
like in
or a
the
very bad
1940s working
accident,
for a foreign
this
power,
hospital will be well
that
equipped
individual responded,
and have
he's
the
working on behalf
resources
of
and
the
staff
Russians, yes.
available
Still
to
believe that.
stabilize
And,
that patient,
Mr. Chairman,
which will in fact be able to save people's lives. If then the treatment or level of care is a more
Arizona's got the time.
complicated
Arizona has the
procedure,
time.
I'd like my-
there is
I'd
a
like- I'd
procedure,
like 10
there's a
seconds added
process
back on.
within this
seconds in any
system.
event.
That's why we're creating a system of care.
So,
There's a
as a close
process
friend,
within the
personal, and
system
advisor of the
to have
president, member of the Trump campaign,
that patient
how
be
do you
able to be
respond to that
transferred to
accusation
receive
by a
a
member of this
higher
committee
level of care
made
to repair whatever
months and
damage that
months
the
ago,
emergency caused.
even before
But we
the
should be
Mueller
very clear
report
that if
came out,
people
said there
have
was
an
no
emergent
collusion or
circumstance, we don't want people to think, and your question shouldn't lead people to think
beneath the
that they
dignity of the
can't go to
President of the
this
United
hospital
States
and
to
receive
accuse
the care
somebody
that
of
they
that.
need to save their
And
life.
while I didn't
Because that just
support
wouldn't be true.
President
So there'll
Obama
be the
when he was the president, didn't
resources,
vote for him.
the equipment,
I still wanted my country to be
the
successful, so I
staff,
wanted him to be
the
successful.
expertise to
And I think those
stabilize the patient.
baseless
And the
accusations
further
against our
repair
president
of that
are
emergency
unfounded
from
and
a health
unwarranted.
perspective will be
So I
done
want to
within
just
the
cover the
system.
last little bit of this. We hear today
show
lots
up
of questions about a
paramedics,
meeting you had with the president regarding Jeff Sessions and some note that was dictated to you.
But I think,
That
well,
was
hold on.
after
But I
special
think you had
counsel
asked that
Mueller
question
was
earlier. Is there going to be a
appointed,
surgeon on
wasn't
duty?
it?
Yes.
I believe it was, yes.
Yes.
And I think there's the other
Did the
component
president
when you
ask
think
you
of
to
level one.
stop
The biggest
Mr. Mueller
differentiator of level
or
one,
to
and Dean
encourage
Bass,
Mr.
as a surgeon
Sessions to
herself, may be able
stop
to
the
add
Mueller
in,
investigation at
is
any
really
point?
around research and that academic
Congressman, I
component
can't speak
related
to or disclose the substance of
injury
discussions with the
injury
president or his
prevention
advisors to protect the
and
executive branch confidentiality.
The disorders that come in
Appreciate
from an
that,
emergency.
but I will tell you,
so
in going through
there
this
will be
report,
surgeons
there is no
available,
evidence,
and our
no
goal
indicia
is a
that the president ever
comprehensive continuum
asked
of care that is
that
integrating
you
that academic
or
medicine
Mr. Sessions
to ensure
stop
that the
the
quality
Mueller
of care
investigation. In
is available to all
fact, the Mueller
DC residents.
investigation went on unimpeded.
Period.
Thousands of interviews, millions of documents. And with that, my time has expired, Mr. Chairman.
I don't hear
Gentleman yields
So,
back.
so
The
let me
gentleman
just
from California.
let me just say this too, because the
Mr.
agreement
Lewandowski, I'm going to put a
contemplates that
slide
we
up,
have a slide here
and
that
it's the
talks
words
about
that
the
President
kinds of
Trump
services
dictated
that will
to
be
you
available at this hospital.
on July 19.
But the other piece that has
Can
been
you read what
important
you
in
wrote
this
down?
discussion, and the UHS has said, and Kim has
I'm
represented,
happy to have you read it,
is that
Congressman.
we're
why don't
engaging
you
the
wanna read it, Mr.
community about the
Lewandowski?
very specific.
I think you should afford me the same
exact
privilege you afforded
lines
Director
of
Mueller.
service that will exist at this
Would you like to read it?
hospital.
No, you're welcome
And
to
so
read it.
part of the
Are you
community
ashamed of the
engagement
words
process
that you wrote down?
and part of how we will
President
talk to the
Swalwell,
community
I'm very happy of
about
what I've written,
services
but you're
will
welcome to
be
read it if
in
you'd
this
like.
hospital
Are
is
you
going to
ashamed
be
to read it
driven
out
by
loud?
that conversation.
I'm not ashamed of
But it
anything in
is
my
our
life,
full
Congressman, are you?
expectation.
Then why don't you read the words?
And we're sitting
Congressman,
here in,
I've asked and answered your question.
April of 2020
Why won't you read the words
about
aloud?
a process
I've
where a
asked and
hospital
answered your
will be
question,
built in
Congressman. If you'd like to read the
2024.
words, you're welcome
But
to.
there is a
Well, you were
process of discussion
ashamed to read them out
about
loud,
those
and you didn't
very
deliver those
exact
words
and
to the person the
specific
president
lines
asked
of
you to.
services and the
Did you have a
volumes with
consciousness
which,
of guilt?
those services can be
I
delivered.
have nothing to be guilty
and
of,
we'll have
Congressman.
that
Thank you.
conversation
Still feel
with
guilty
the
today,
community.
and that's why you
But
can't read
we
it
want
out
to
loud?
be very clear.
Congressman, you're
It is
welcome
our
to read the
full
words if you'd like.
expectation,
Well, I just
both
wonder
from
why
our
you can't.
operator, from the physicians
I have
who
the
will
capacity to,
service
Congressman. I'll give you that
at George
privilege.
Washington
You said the president did
University
nothing wrong.
and
Why
from the
can't you read
District
those
of
words right
Columbia,
now?
that we
Why
will
can't you read them
have
aloud?
those
Congressman,
kinds of
tell me
services
why you hold me to a different
necessary
standard than
to
previous
take
witnesses
care
who
of
sat here.
emergent circumstances
I
that
want to
walk
give you
through
one
that
more
ER
opportunity
door
to clear up
as
something
an
you said
adult
earlier. You
patient
said a number
or
of
a
times that was
pediatric
in the
patient.
Mueller report, it was accurate,
Senate?
except as it relates to you stating that
Yes,
this was
Senate
the
here
only
with
time
just
the
two
president
follow-up
ever asked you to
questions.
write something down. Are you
City
saying that that
Administrator
part's not
Young, you
accurate?
mentioned having reserves
I'd
that
ask
the
to stop the clock
that,
while he
the
confers with his
hospital
lawyer.
can draw on for operating expenses for 10 years. How much money is that over 10 years?
Clock will be stopped for 5 seconds.
Could I see the page and reference number on that, Congressman?
Sure, it's page 91, lines 7 and 8. I will read it to you. This was the first time the president had asked Lewandowski to take dictation. Are you saying that that is not
so
accurate?
$5 million a year.
I'm saying those aren't
for
my
the
words,
first
Congressman.
5 years. Will
I'm
go
asking
into
you, was
this
that the first
fund,
time the president
to
asked you
help
to take
with any
dictation?
operating losses that
testified it's not
occur,
the first
because
time.
what we know
So this part
is
would be inaccurate.
when we build this hospital,
I'm saying I've taken dictation by
and we will,
the candidate
there
and the
will be a
president in the
period
past.
of time for that hospital
Have you
to
ever
ramp
put
up
any
its
words that the
operations
the
and
president
its
asked you to
volume,
write down
so
before in
that
a
we
safe?
can meet,
Or was this the first
the
time you'd done
operator
that?
can meet the projections that we have
I
discussed
believe it's
with
my
them,
standard operating
in the
procedure and taking
operating
notes, Congressman.
agreement, for
So
those
every note that you
operations
take of the
and that
president, you
revenue
put in a
to be able
safe?
to take care of all of the expenses. So
How big's
that
that
ramp
safe?
up
I don't-
period,
it's a big safe,
we
Congress.
have
There's a lot of
for
guns in there.
5-year period of time, $5 million
Is this the first
a
time you've
year.
ever put a
So
secret
there's
message
up
from the
to
president that he
$25
wanted you to
million
deliver to someone
fund
else in the
that
safe?
would be available.
I don't believe there's anything
for
secret
the
about the
first
message.
10
I was
years
never
of
told to
its
keep the message
operation.
secret.
Is this the first time you ever put a message that the
Got it.
president asked you to
And
deliver
then
to someone
for
else in the
Ms.
safe?
Russo and,
Not to the best of my
and
recollection.
Dr. Frederick,
I
how
want
are
to go
you
back to
planning
that
to find
day.
a
Later,
viable
after the president
financial
asked you
model
to deliver
for
this
serving
message, he was
predominantly
interviewed by
for
the New York
Medicaid
Times.
patients when
And the
so
next
many other
slide shows
hospitals
that he
have,
said
encountered
Sessions
challenges
should
or
have never
failed.
recused himself. And if he was going to recuse
That's
himself,
what we've been
he should have
talking
told me
about for the
before
last
he took
half
the
hour.
job. I would have picked
How
someone else.
complicated it is and why it requires
That's
a
not what the president said to you during that
public-private
meeting one-on-one in the
partnership,
Oval Office. Is that
to
right?
have a private model,
The White House has directed that I not disclose the substance of any discussions with the president or his advisors to
Mr.
protect
Chairman,
executive branch
Chairman,
confidentiality.
I'd like to stop the clock for a
but
parliamentary
I think
inquiry.
what we all see
Gentleman
is
will
that
state his
that's
parliamentary inquiry. I would
precisely
like
the
to
government's role,
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to request a
get
ruling
in,
on the
and
witness's
get the
refusal
best
to
of
answer.
the best at the table, and tell
Mr.
you what it's
Lewandowski,
going to take to make that
when you
happen.
refuse to answer
We've
these
been talking
questions,
for
you
a
are
lot of
obstructing
years
the work
about
of
the
our
district
committee.
getting out of the
You
hospital
are also
business.
proving our point
And
for the
this is what
American
it
people
takes.
to see.
It takes
The president is intent on obstructing our
plans,
legitimate oversight.
robust
You are aiding him in that
investment,
obstruction.
and it takes
And I
being
will remind
strategic
you that
about
Article
how
3
we
of the
deliver those
impeachment against
services. And I
President
think
Nixon
exactly what we
was
have
based
here.
on
Okay.
obstruction
Thank you,
of
everybody.
Congress.
Oh,
You are instructed to answer the question. The clock will start again.
Mr. Chairman, parliamentary inquiry.
The gentleman will state his parliamentary inquiry.
Is it correct, and I can repeat, or you can let me see your little sheet there, that reference you made to Nixon was after a formal inquiry was put to the House and then brought back to the Judiciary Committee? Your statement's a little bit different than this. Just wanted to point out truth for the record. I yield.
And I'm just
I
wondering.
have a parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Chairman.
First of all, that was not a parliamentary inquiry. He didn't even ask anything. But who seeks? Gentleman will state his parliamentary inquiry.
Mr. Chairman, did you
I'm
just
not sure
threaten to
exactly
impeach
which
Mr.
slide you're
Lewandowski,
referring to,
private
but
citizen?
we've been very consistent
No,
in how
the
we
plan